Is it wrong to dance this line? If your heart was full of love, could you give it up? Within a minute I was all packed up. I've got to take it to another world. I don't wanna go, I don't wanna go.
Education has been deemed a right, but the argument as to whether it should be funded equitably or equally is still up for debate. It's up to you to stand up and make a change for equitable education for all. Thank you all for listening. I really appreciate it. I want to kind of further elaborate on why equitable education is so important for us. Education is the foundation of society currently. If you don't have an education or a degree, you're unable to go further in your career path. You'll be kind of stuck in a bubble, in kind of an ever non-evolving cycle, because the lack of education is a barrier from allowing you to get further in your career path, and eventually kind of will lead you down the wrong path. So an example of this is currently about 80% of students that fall into the category of having a cognitive or intellectual disability will actually end up in the juvenile court system as they fall out of school. And there's several reasons for why they fall out of school, whether that be from teachers giving up on them giving up on school because they're not getting the proper support, them actually not being diagnosed properly and giving the proper support as a consequence of not actually being diagnosed, and the list goes on and on. And what ends up happening to these students is they drop out of education because they do not feel like they fit in, and then they get into trouble. They get out on the streets. They don't have the proper support from home and family environments that they should, and they end up getting into trouble. And this can look and take kind of shape in many different ways, whether it be with drugs, alcohol, other people kind of getting violent, not being able to be properly medicated because they don't understand that they actually need to go see doctors. And as a result of this, they will end up using our tax dollars to end the incarceration system. And that typically kind of is a reoccurring cycle of once people don't get help, they fall into that cycle. And even though they may be able to get out, they kind of stay in the system off and on. And there's about a 50% chance of once they leave, they'll actually come back if they have a mental or cognitive disability that they're not able to be treated. And as a result, a lot of the money that would be instead going to education is actually going to the incarceration system. So kind of what I was showcasing here is voting. That is the most important thing you can do because education funding is what leads to success in the long run. With extra funding, we can hire better teachers. We can hire more teachers, get one-on-one individualized attention and support in the classroom for every student of every ability, and be able to make sure that they're receiving the support they need to further their educational beliefs and to help them get ready for the future. So in that video, you saw Paul, who's one of my clients under the Workability program. So I work with him on a transitioning type program from the educational setting into a work setting, and he is now supporting himself because he is able to work, and he does have Down syndrome, but obviously you saw that did not impair him from actually finding a job and being able to support himself. So now I'd like to open the floor to any questions you may have. Yes.
As a general education student, how does increased special education funding help me?
That's a great question. A lot of people don't really understand the disconnect because there is a very, very vast difference between general education and special education funding. And as a result, a lot of times they're competing for the same pot of money that's allocated for education. So a lot of people don't really believe that education should be funded equitably. They think it should be funded equally. And because people don't understand that it doesn't have to be an either-or situation, people oftentimes in general education do not think that special education funding actually has a benefit to them. But here's actually what they don't understand. If you are able to break the cycle and kind of front a little bit more money into the special education system now, that will prevent a lot of our special education students from falling out of the school system, getting into more trouble, and getting into incarceration and other things that cost our tax dollars more. They're way more heavily on our tax dollars. And instead, once we break that cycle, it'll be really easy to allocate that money, not only to special education, but general education as well. So that one small change can actually alleviate a huge burden for our incarceration system and really be able to allocate a ton more money into both the general and special education sectors. Thank you. I really appreciate that question.